Welcome everyone, welcome. My name is Sean. I'm the owner of One With Nature. I trust you've been well since my last video. Today we're going to talk about the brain. So if you have a brain, make yourself comfortable, pull up a chair, maybe get a drink, because this information is going to help you. Because today I'm going to reveal a vitally important system in your body, which I'm willing to bet an enormous amount of people have never heard of before and have no idea it even exists. And I wouldn't even really be talking about this because there's lots of systems in the body, but this particular system greatly impacts your health. If you understand the mechanics of a system in the body, then you can figure out ways to repair, support, or even manipulate that system to your benefit. And I'm going to briefly explain what this system is and how you can be sure to the best of each individual person watching this, to the best of your ability, get the most out of the system, how to keep it running smoothly. And you do have the power to directly affect how well this system performs. If this system fails or does not run smoothly, you are looking at increased chances of Alzheimer's, dementia, Lewy body, Parkinson's. If you have CTE or other brain trauma, brain injury, then this system is going to greatly affect whether it drags on forever or whether you can improve your condition. This system is called the glymphatic system, and it resides pretty much within the confines of the cranium. This is linked directly to the cerebrospinal fluid. You've probably heard of the lymphatic system, which runs all through the body outside of the brain proper. The lymphatic system is a huge cleansing and filtering network, which can reach even into bone. So that's the lymphatic system. But we're talking about the glymphatic system right now. Its job is to wash the brain and clear out metabolic byproducts, which your brain is creating right now as you watch this video. Your brain is creating metabolic byproducts all the time. When studying the physiology of the body, there are always new discoveries being revealed. But what I'm going to cover today is pretty close to the model of the glymphatic system as it is currently understood by those persons who discovered it, or some people say rediscovered the system. The glymphatic system was officially discovered around 2012, although research was done in the mid-1980s, which could have greatly accelerated, leapfrogged our understanding of how the brain tissue stay healthy. But this research in the mid-1980s was shelved due to faulty follow-up experiments performed by a completely different researcher. And in those experiments in the mid-1980s, when I was researching this, I found that an enzyme, which is found in horseradish root of all things, was a critical part of the experiments in 1985, which were then accidentally sidelined for decades. So we are 27 years behind the 8 ball on this one, trying to play catch up. The glymphatic system is largely a separate system which directly interfaces with your brain tissue. The glymphatic system regularly performs washing and cleansing actions on the brain tissue itself. If you are dealing with chronic traumatic encephalopathy, brain injury, some form of brain trauma, even if it occurred months or years ago, then knowing how to keep the glymphatic system in tip-top running condition will increase your odds of recovering from these traumas and injuries. Every little bit helps. We're stacking probabilities. And today I will be glad to show you the basics of how to do this. The basics. It's a very complicated subject. The purpose of the glymphatic system, boiled down, is literally brainwashing, just like television. The glymphatic system is quite inactive right now because you are awake, I'm assuming, watching this video. But the glymphatic system springs into action when you sleep, and it is activated during a very specific part of each sleep cycle. So you got to be asleep for the system to work to its full potential. If the glymphatic system does not work to its full potential, the tissues of the brain will suffer. And then you get all kinds of illnesses. And sometimes these illnesses occur so far down the road that you never connect the illness to the poor sleep habits you had decades ago. The glymphatic system is a dedicated highway system for the transport of specialized fluids which will cleanse the brain tissues while you sleep. The glymphatic system works much more powerfully while you sleep. Now here's the catch, because there's always a catch. If you have poor sleep habits, or if you need, let's say you need 9 hours of sleep a night, you have always operated best when you get 9 hours of sleep a night, but you're only getting 5 or 6 hours of sleep each night. And this is not just a few times a month. I mean, you need 9 hours of sleep each night, and you're only getting 5 or 6 hours for months or years. The researchers probably won't say this, but I will. You are killing your brain. The glymphatic system is highly active while you sleep. We sleep in cycles, and a person will generally rotate between 3 to 5 cycles, complete sleep cycles, each night. If you have CTE or other brain injury or trauma, you want to be a 5-cycle sleeper, because your brain needs those additional 2 cycles to clear out the metabolic byproducts from the brain tissues and begin healing. You're greatly handicapping the healing if you don't get this stuff out of the brain. The glymphatic system is dependent on restful, healing sleep to operate to the peak of its ability. But we have enormous amounts of people, millions, tens of millions, all across the world with sleep disorders. People who chronically only sleep 5 or 6 hours a night. People who sleep, let's say they sleep 9 hours a night, but they have sleep apnea. And this short circuits the sleep cycle, constantly denying them this deep, restful, healing sleep. Or let's say a person is so adrenally exhausted, core exhaustion. They literally do not have the energy to fall asleep and stay asleep, because it takes energy to sleep. And this is not a small amount of energy either. It's a considerable amount of energy, because the brain is always active and that requires energy. And there are people who are so adrenally exhausted they cannot fall asleep and stay asleep. They don't have the energy to sleep. They never reach these multiple full cycles. They can't do it. And they begin falling apart right in front of you. And this person would be an ideal candidate for American ginseng or red ginseng. If they're really in bad shape, then you want to pull out the red ginseng to restore that core energy. Even at a young age, they may need red ginseng. I'll cover all that in a future video about adaptogens. But let's say you have a person who sleeps sitting upright in a chair. Maybe they work night shift, or they're a night watchman or some type of graveyard shift, and they end up falling asleep in a chair sitting upright, and this goes on for years. Or the person who has sleep apnea, or the person who needs 9 hours of sleep, but they only sleep 5 or 6 hours every night. You've got the person suffering from core exhaustion. All of these people are collecting metabolic byproducts in the brain tissues, because everything I just mentioned prevents the glymphatic fluid or system from doing its job fully. All known mammals will die from sleep deprivation, including you, but I think a lot of people are dying from sleep deprivation on the installment plan. It just takes years for that final payment to be delivered in the form of Alzheimer's, happens every day. So here we have roughly 16 ounces of fluid, clear fluid. This is the amount, roughly, of cerebrospinal fluid generated in a 24-hour period, and it is cerebrospinal fluid which is used to wash the brain. Largely, this occurs while you are asleep, and the cerebrospinal fluid pushes out proteins which can accumulate in brain tissues and create many health issues, which I just went over. And cerebrospinal fluid should be clear as a bell. It should have no color to it. So here's a side profile of the human cranium, or as I like to call it, the glymphatic attic. Now, a complete sleep cycle will include both rapid eye movement sleep and non-rapid eye movement sleep. And there are other parts of the sleep cycle as well. The glymphatic system has its peak operating efficiency, volume, during non-REM sleep. And maybe I think there's a study or two out now saying that to a lesser extent during rapid eye movement sleep. But non-REM, this is where the majority of the cleansing takes place. And it's at this point in the sleep cycle that the space between the brain cells will actually increase. So the cells are further apart, and this occurs in anticipation of the fluid, which is about to come through the tissues and flush out metabolic byproducts. No other organ in the body does this. It's unique to the brain. So this is an enclosed area here. This is all happening within the skull. So if you have a large volume of glymphatic fluid, cerebrospinal fluid, about to wash its way through this confined space, something has to give. And remember, this is every night when you go to sleep. This isn't some spit and polish cleansing on a surface level. You get a phone call, somebody says, hey, I'm 30 seconds away from your house, I'm coming down the road now, and you got to hurry up and clean the place up. This is not getting ready for a booty call at 2 a.m. or whatever. This is a regular nightly occurrence. So the brain gets ready to accommodate this incoming fluid rushing through brain tissues. And the cells are now further apart, so the fluid can wash around the cells easily and sweep out this junk. I guess I'm making it sound like a tidal wave or a tsunami or something. It's not. It's a combination of a flushing action and a diffusion. A diffusion is a slower action, but still effective for cleansing. It's a combination of both a direct action and a diffusion, which spreads out slowly, based on the model of the people who discovered this system. So this all starts within a few minutes of you falling asleep. 5 or 10 minutes after you officially fall asleep, it is go time. The brain has been building up byproducts all day long, 16 hours or more. It's imperative for the brain to begin mop-up operations as soon as possible, because it doesn't know when you're going to wake up again. It doesn't know when it's going to get this chance again, so it has to start right away. A noise could wake you up in 30 minutes or an hour. Somebody could jostle you, anything could happen. So the cleansing has to take place as soon as possible for the brain tissue survival. Quality sleep is important because if you do not have multiple, complete sleep cycles on a regular basis, if you do not experience true restful sleep month after month, year after year, the lack of a proper cleansing of brain tissues by the glymphatic system compounds over time. And the result is a buildup of junk inside the brain tissue itself. The inside of your brain looks like the bathroom floor of a red-eye flight from Las Vegas to Hong Kong after a 4-day bender and unlimited trips to the salad bar and buffet. You've got amyloid plaque, which is associated with Alzheimer's and dementia. You've got dead cells You've got tau proteins, which are also associated with many neurological disorders, diseases, including Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, Pick's disease. And if these proteins are not cleansed, if they're not cleansed out, flushed out of the brain, then you have this accumulation. And this can take place over time. And then you've got big troubles down the road. Sometimes the person will only notice the after effects of the accumulation of these proteins in the brain decades later. And it depends on the person's heredity. There are people for whom this lack of sleep does not appear to affect them. You can see a guy so old, his social security number is 3, and he's been sleeping 4, 5, 6 hours a night for decades. His mental cognition, off the charts. He's doing great. Amazing. Then you have someone in their 30s who is falling apart from a chronic lack of sleep. I know somebody like this right now, and they just turned 30. They're falling apart. It's not pretty. Think of how many people have suffered from dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, Lewy body, because they did not know or understand there was a link between not getting healing sleep and the brain filling up with these proteins. And this can happen to type A personalities, the hard chargers, the go-getters. They want to make a name for themselves. They really want to work hard, and that's fine, but they skimp on the sleep, and then this happens. So amyloid plaque can form for other reasons. I'll cover that in a future video if I ever get around to it. I was going to make this video in the spring of 2018, so if that tells you anything, but I'm making it now. So for now, because there are other reasons that amyloid plaque and plaques can build up in the brain, I would say cut down your sugars and cut your carbs down, way down, trust me, if you want healthy brain tissues. So now you're probably wondering what's the easiest way to manipulate this system. And the easiest way is simply to get plenty of restful, healing sleep. That's number one. To ensure the glymphatic system is operating fully, you first need restful, healing sleep. To find out how to get restful sleep, just some tips. I made a video years ago, how to make your kidneys and adrenals happy. And in that video, I go over different protocols, products, probably an amino acid or two that you can use to get restful sleep. An easy way to make sure that the glymphatic system is flowing freely is to pay attention to what position you are in while you sleep. So obviously we're going to find ourselves in different positions during a night of sleep, but I will say that sleeping upright is just about the worst position you can possibly fall asleep in when it comes to the smooth function of the glymphatic system. The two best positions, if you want to narrow it down, the two best positions for the operation of the glymphatic system while you sleep would be laying on your right side with your head turned to the right, or you can put a long pillow under the left side of your body so that you're tilted towards the right side and your head is facing the right shoulder. Laying on your right side has been shown to increase glymphatic flow by up to 30%, and these were in animal trials, so it may not correspond exactly to humans. So what can we take? There's got to be something we can take that will go to the glymphatic attic and begin supporting this cleansing system, because you've got this precious cerebrospinal fluid flowing freely through the brain, and we want to keep it that way. So what can we take? Well, it just so happens I recently heard an interview, and the interview wasn't that old, by a world expert on the glymphatic system, and he spoke extensively about this subject. And he clearly said there's no such thing. No pharma company has come up with a pill which enhances or protects or fortifies the glymphatic system. So I guess that's it. We're screwed. So I was so moved by this information, I decided to change the name One with Nature to I Give Up. And I'm closing everything down, and I'm going to retire to private life, and I will write my memoirs, which will include lots of photos. Actually, there was this one time in Tokyo where I accidentally, and that's how I got banned from the island of Japan. But while I was going over that story, I was suddenly reminded of the many options that we have when dealing with the glymphatic and the lymphatic system. So I'm just going to go ahead and share those right now. I'm going to give a few examples because historically people get frustrated when you give them too many choices. They don't like that. And I understand that. So like I said earlier, when we understand how a system works or what it's made out of, we can fortify, repair, support, or even manipulate that system. Whether it's the skeletal system, cardiovascular system, nervous system, endocrine system, or the lymphatic and glymphatic system as well. So let's look at the physiology, which is involved. We're going to look at a small part of the physiology, which is involved in the glymphatic system, because this is going to tell us how best to proceed when we understand what we're dealing with, based on the research and theories of the person/persons who researched this and came up with this, came up with the work done, the discoveries on the glymphatic system. Da Vinci wept. So this is an artery which dives down into the brain. And is this exactly what the artery looks like in your brain? I hope not. If it does, I am formally requesting a trip to your mothership. But because this is an artery, there's lots of blood flowing through here. And there are lots of ways to strengthen these arteries and veins as well. Comes in really handy if you don't want to have a stroke someday. I'll get to that in a minute. So we have blood flowing through this artery, lots of blood, and it is under high pressure. That's why arteries have these thick muscular walls, so they can contain this pressure without blowing apart, which does happen if you don't get the right nutrients in your brain. Okay, but the artery here in the brain is actually, you can think of this as a tube within a tube, all right? So here's the arterial tube, and then there's the outer tube. The artery is on the inside, and surrounding the artery is a structure, which is a conduit. And this outer tube carries liquid as well, but it's not blood. This outer section is for the flow of cerebrospinal fluid. And cerebrospinal fluid is not green. It should be as clear as a bell. If your cerebrospinal fluid is any shade of green, then something's wrong. Maybe you've been drinking too many nettle leaf milkshakes. I don't know. But so the glymphatic system doesn't have its own pump to move fluids through the brain. What happens is this artery in the middle pulsates with every beat of your heart, and with every pulsation, the walls of the artery will, with this thick muscular layer, will expand and then contract, expand and then contract, pulsing the flow of blood into the brain. This happens constantly, all day long. It's happening right now in your brain as you're watching this. When you fall asleep, the glymphatic system is activated, the faucet is turned on, and it only takes a few minutes after you've fallen asleep, because like I mentioned earlier, the brain doesn't know when it's going to get this chance to cleanse itself again. So it has to do it right away. This pulsing action of the artery in the middle of this tube structure has a secondary effect of creating a mini compression wave. Actually, it's a hydraulic wave. You can't compress water. But so this compression, this hydraulic wave pushes cerebrospinal fluid through this tubular structure where the artery is pulsing in the middle. With each pulse of this artery, cerebrospinal fluid moves forward, and it comes out of these little blue Tic Tacs you see right here. This official name is aquaporin 4, but these are water channels. The little blue guys are water channels, and they are everywhere on the outside of this structure. On the wall of the structure, they're everywhere. They stick out all over the place. And there's a lot more going on here, but I just wanted to show the very basics. It's a very complex architecture. But these little blue guys, these Tic Tacs, this is where the cerebrospinal fluid leaves the fluid-filled conduit. Okay, so they're all over this. And this is the water channel that they use to escape this conduit. There's so many of these aquaporin 4 water channels that this tube is kind of like a sieve. It's been called a giant, or it's similar to brain or to a kidney cells in the cells in the kidney, where you have fluid rushing through 47.5 gallons a day. You have a tremendous amount of fluid that is capable of leaving this conduit. Okay, so the heart beats, there's a slight delay, and then there's a precision movement of the cerebrospinal fluid being propelled in bursts through the glymphatic system. It's piggybacking. The fluid in this section of the tube is piggybacking on the pulsing action of the artery in the middle. So what does this tell us? If the glymphatic system is indeed dependent on the cardiac system to work optimally, then we need to look at what strengthens the cardiac system. Obviously, exercise and movement, get up and move. That comes in at number 1, to keep the heart muscle strengthened. But silica and vitamin C are essential here to maintain and build these thick muscular walls. Increased musculature in the arterial walls equals increased flow rate from this outer conduit. At this level, it's just simple plumbing. Collagen and elastin are needed here to create the thick muscular walls, and silica and vitamin C provide this, and it doesn't take a lot either. Vitamin C is easy to get. If you prefer, you can get it from food sources. Silica you can get from bamboo powder or food-grade diatomaceous earth. That's another great form of silica, and it's really cheap for how much you're going to end up using daily. So 1/4 of a teaspoon of diatomaceous earth 4 times a day at least, because it's poorly absorbed, for the silica. Another fantastic product for the cardiovascular system would be this product from Herbalist and Alchemist. I recommend this to everybody. This is the best solid Hawthorne berry product I've ever seen, and I've tried a lot of them. I have seen this product create profound changes in people in as little as 30 minutes, if not a lot less. And I'm talking about their mood or spirit here, not a structural change, which would be great. But this instant effect on a person's mood is indicative of Hawthorne's powers, because Hawthorne berry feeds the heart. When you feed the heart, you feed the spirit. When you feed the spirit, you feed the heart. And if I ever get around to making part 2 of my herbs for heartache and heartbreak, I will be talking about this product. So you can either wait for that video or you can get it now. And this would be 1/2 of a teaspoon a couple times a day. So vitamin C, silica, Hawthorne berry for the cardiovascular system. You can go deeper, you can add more things easily, but I consider these just some very simple basics. And the vitamin C and the silica will also strengthen the lymphatic and glymphatic tissues as well, because these are, again, these need collagen and elastin. You could add more supplements here. Taurine, the amino acid taurine, would be really good for heart health as well, and brain health, and many other things. It's amazing. So earlier I mentioned 16 ounces of cerebrospinal fluid is generated in the brain each day, and a large portion of this bathes the brain, and then it bathes the spinal cord as well. But where does all this fluid go after it's been used to wash away metabolic byproducts in the brain? Well, this is where the lymphatic system comes into play. Because based on this research, the cerebrospinal fluid ends up coming down into the cervical lymph nodes, which are in the neck. And when the lymph fluid from lymph nodes in the neck is examined, it has an abnormally high amount of beta amyloid proteins in it, because these cervical lymph nodes are taking part in the cleansing process of this post-cleaning glymphatic fluid. And this may be why some people from time to time deal with enlarged lymph nodes in the neck. Can't figure out why, drives the person crazy. It may be a direct result of having these lymph nodes having to process the metabolic byproducts produced in the brain that are swept out and come down the lymphatic vessels in the neck. And they end up with these lymph nodes in the neck, inflamed. And this would be a good job for the herb red root. This can be really useful here because red root works really well to reduce the stagnation and swellings of lymph nodes in the neck. Red root has other lymphatic benefits as well. Now, red root also thins the blood. So if you are on certain medications, then red root may not be for you. Red root is available in tincture form online, many places. So if you can't use red root, then you might be able to use gotu kola. A tincture of gotu kola, Centella asiatica, is good for inflamed, enlarged lymph nodes in the neck. Gotu kola is your go-to herb for any area of the body which is inflamed, red, hot. It's also used commercially as a skin tightener in many skincare products. Will it pull your skin back tighter than Zsa Zsa Gabor's second facelift? I don't think so, but it is a skin tightener, so might want to check it out. Self-heal, Prunella vulgaris. This is a great lymphatic herb to use here. It grows like crazy on the other side of that wall. Self-heal is a soothing, moistening, demulcent herb. It is great for wound healing. Self-heal has anti-inflammatory properties. It's good for headaches, sore throats. It can dissolve nodules. So this would be a good one to use to help open up the lymphatic system in the neck, possibly in combination with calendula, maybe cleavers, but calendula. And you could combine that with self-heal and viola. You could actually make a salve with those, probably make a pretty good salve. You can apply this topically as well. It doesn't have to be direct ingestion because topical application at the neck will work very well in this situation with a tincture or a salve. Calendula is also a good liver support herb, and eventually this cerebrospinal fluid, which then mixes with the lymphatic fluid, this gets recirculated into the venous system, which ends up going back to the heart, but it also hits the liver, and then the liver works its magic because that's its job, to cleanse this mess. I don't think it's such a huge volume of proteins in the brain that the liver is just burdened unnecessarily. But you do have your great liver herbs. You've got milk thistle, schizanderberry, bupleurum, choncapiedra, and many others as well. There's no shortage of great liver herbs. Omega-3 oils appear to help remove, they either help remove beta amyloid proteins or they help transport them or dissolve them. The issue is that omega-3 oils oxidize in the bottles sitting on the shelves of the store, and that's not good. So wild-caught sardines would be good here. Make sure that the sardines are packed in spring water and not packed in olive oil, because a lot of olive oil out there, the bulk is diluted with vegetable seed oil. It's corrupted. So you're trying to eat something which ostensibly will improve your health, and then you're unknowingly eating vegetable seed oils mixed in with that food. It's self-defeating. So get these sardines packed in spring water. Make sure the sardines are truly wild caught, because there might be companies out there who farm sardines in confined spaces, okay? And then they temporarily release them into a large body of salt water, but there's a very fine netting in place so that the sardines cannot escape. Then they recapture the sardines, and now they can be sold as wild caught. See how that works? As we age, the lymphatic vessels will atrophy, and this includes the lymphatic vessels in the neck. So what we have here is a bottleneck. You have all this fluid being generated in the brain, and eventually it needs to get out of the head and move into the lymphatic vessels in the neck before moving on to the rest of the body. In a person's elder years, you're looking at a bottleneck here where fluids suddenly have trouble exiting the lymph nodes and the vessels in the neck. And I truly think a good quality rebounder here would be ideal for increasing the flow of lymphatic fluid draining from the brain, originating from the brain, and finding its way down into the neck. And these little particles, they're going to find their way into the neck and then be taken care of by other parts of the body, but you got to get it out of the neck. And a rebounder, if you buy one and actually use it weekly, that's the catch. You got to use it. You really got to use that thing every other day. This could pay off in a big way. Another protocol you can use is red light therapy. This has been shown to help the glymphatic system operate more efficiently, as well as all the lymphatic vessels found in the head, the meningeal lymphatics as well. You're not going to win any fashion awards wearing one of these as the red light treatment is delivered, but it beats the alternative. It's not cheap. $1,800 to $5,000 US. I know for a fact a lot of you watching my videos, you do have the means to avail yourself of this type of treatment. For you, $5,000 is like a Starbucks coffee to other people. So this could change your life. Sleep and exercise are the kings here. Herbs are great, but they're not the cornerstones of health. Sleep and movement are cornerstones. Sleep and exercise enhance the glymphatic system. Do you have chronic poor sleep habits? Say hello to dementia. And this is not medication-induced senile dementia I'm referring to here, which is probably the most common cause of senile dementia medications. This is from proteins accumulated in the brain over years. Poor sleepers have increased risk of dementia and will have increased protein accumulation in the brain. Because the glymphatic system does not have the required amount of time to cleanse the brain tissues, because a person's only getting 5 or 6 hours of sleep a night, this builds up over time, and the chances of you getting dementia can increase by 30%, which again, the glymphatic system plays a huge role in this. Lack of sleep affects memory, reaction times, attention to detail, judgment. So for these reasons alone, restful, healing sleep should be an area of our life that we want to pay attention to. It affects everything. I'm going to put a study down in the video description which shows niacin, and this is flush niacin, vitamin B3, greatly helping in cases of suspected Alzheimer's, dementia. So I would highly suggest reading that study. If you know somebody with dementia or suspected Alzheimer's, it's entirely probable that the flush niacin breaks apart beta amyloid plaque in the brain. But niacin also has other positive effects as well, which will help in this situation. This is B3, flush niacin. So there we have the basics. So now you know a little bit more about what's going on in your brain. We understand the importance of sleep in a brand new light. We know different ways to maximize the power of the glymphatic system, including herbs we can use, which will help the glymphatic and lymphatic system, and other details as well. So let's use this information to help others, okay? My name is Sean. I am one with nature, and I will see you in the next video.
I'm gonna take your brain out of your head and wash it and scrub it and make it clean.